In August 1947, the British Empire finally left India. After nearly 2 centuries of colonial rule, one of the most important colonies in the world was becoming free. For millions of people, this was the moment generations had waited for. The British Raj was ending. A new flag was rising. A new future was beginning. But Indian independence did not arrive as one simple celebration. It arrived with a division. British India was split into 2 new states, India and Pakistan. And before the joy of independence could fully settle, trains began to fill, roads began to crowd, and millions of people began moving across a border that many had not even seen on a map. This is one of the heaviest turning points in modern Indian history. At the very moment India gained independence, the land was divided. Communities were separated. Families fled across new borders. Cities changed almost overnight. The question behind this episode is not simply how India became free. The deeper story is why freedom came together with partition. The answer was not one decision made in one room. It was the result of decades of colonial rule, political fear, religious identity, failed compromise, wartime exhaustion, and a rushed transfer of power. Partition was not sudden. It was a pressure that had been building for years. British India was not a simple nation-state. It was a vast subcontinent of languages, religions, regions, provinces, castes, communities, and princely states. Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, and many others lived across the same land. Punjab was mixed. Bengal was mixed. These cities were not divided neatly by religion, but colonial rule changed how identity worked in politics. The British counted people, and numbers could become fear. In the early 20th century, the Indian National Congress became the most powerful movement demanding independence. Its leaders imagined a united India, not an India without differences, but an India large enough to contain them. Mahatma Gandhi gave this dream a moral language: non-violence, self-rule, and unity across religious lines. Jawaharlal Nehru gave it a modern political shape, a democratic India, with secular institutions, a strong central government, and a future beyond empire. But another fear was growing at the same time. Many Muslims worried that in a future democratic India, they would become a permanent minority. If the British left and power moved to elected majorities, what would protect Muslim political interests? Independence promised freedom. But freedom also raised a frightening question: who would control the new state? In the early 20th century, the Indian National Congress became the most powerful movement demanding independence. Its leaders imagined a united India, not an India without differences, but an India large enough to contain them. Mahatma Gandhi gave this dream a moral language: non-violence, self-rule, and unity across religious lines. Jawaharlal Nehru gave it a modern political shape, a democratic India, with secular institutions, a strong central government, and a future beyond empire. But another fear was growing at the same time. Many Muslims worried that in a future democratic India, they would become a permanent minority. If the British left and power moved to elected majorities, what would protect Muslim political interests? Independence promised freedom. But freedom also raised a frightening question: who would control the new state? The leader who came to embody that fear was Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Jinnah was disciplined, elegant, legalistic, and precise. Earlier in his career, he had been known as a constitutional politician and even as someone who could bridge Hindu-Muslim differences. In 1940, the Muslim League supported the idea of independent states in Muslim-majority regions. At first, the idea was complex, but by the 1940s, one word began to gather force: Pakistan. The problem was geography. A political idea could sound clear in speeches, but on the ground, the map was not clear at all. Punjab and Bengal had mixed populations living across the provinces. A Sikh farmer near Lahore might have ancestral land, sacred memories, and business ties in a region that would become Pakistan. A Muslim family in Delhi might support Pakistan politically, but still live hundreds of miles away from the new state. A Hindu family in East Bengal might suddenly become a minority in Pakistan. Partition promised a solution to one problem, but it created thousands of new ones. By 1945, the Second World War had changed everything. Britain had won the war, but it was exhausted. The empire looked powerful from a distance, but financially and politically it was weakening. India had contributed soldiers, money, and resources to the war. Indian expectations for self-government had grown stronger. In 1946, Britain sent the cabinet mission to India. Its goal was to avoid partition, if possible. The plan tried to keep India united with a weak central government, but trust was disappearing. In August 1946, Direct Action Day turned into massive communal violence in Calcutta. The possibility of civil war felt near. By 1947, many people who once hoped for a united India began to believe that partition might be unavoidable. For Congress, partition became the price of ending deadlock and securing independence. For the Muslim League, Pakistan became the only guarantee that Muslims would not be trapped under majority rule. For the British, partition looked like the quickest exit from a crisis they could no longer control. In March 1947, Lord Mountbatten arrived as the last Viceroy of India. His mission was to end British rule. Originally, Britain had planned to transfer power by June 1948. Mountbatten moved much faster. On June 3, 1947, the plan was announced. British India would be divided, and power would be transferred not to one government, but to two: India, Pakistan. The timeline was astonishingly short. Governments had to be created. Armies had to be divided. Money, records, railway systems, civil services, and military units had to be split, and the border itself still had not been drawn. The man chosen to draw it was Cyril Radcliffe. He was a British lawyer. He had never been to India before. That was considered an advantage. He had no local friendships, no known loyalties, no emotional attachment. But neutrality is not the same as understanding. Radcliffe was given only weeks to divide Punjab and Bengal. He had census figures, district maps, railway lines, canals, roads, and political pressure. He did not have time. And he was not drawing through empty land. He was drawing through millions of lives. One of the most dramatic cases was Lahore. Lahore was one of the great cities of Punjab, cultural, historical, educational, and deeply connected to Muslim, Sikh, and Hindu life. For many non-Muslims, losing Lahore meant losing a world. For Pakistan, Lahore was essential to the new country's identity and future. Bengal brought another tragedy. Calcutta, one of the most important cities in British India, went to India. Eastern Bengal became East Pakistan. This created a Pakistan with two wings, West Pakistan in the northwest and East Pakistan in the east, separated by more than 1,000 miles of Indian territory. In 1947, few could fully see how difficult that arrangement would become. But the shape of future conflict was already visible on the map. Then came the strangest detail of all. India and Pakistan became independent before the final border was officially announced. Pakistan celebrated independence on August 14th. India celebrated independence on August 15th. The Radcliffe Line was announced on August 17th. For 2 days, people celebrated freedom without knowing exactly where the new border would fall. A village could wake up believing it was in India, then learn it was in Pakistan. A family could decide to stay, then realize it had to leave. A railway town could become a border town overnight. Freedom arrived before certainty. Once the line became real, migration began on a scale few had imagined. Muslims moved toward Pakistan. Hindus and Sikhs moved toward India. Some left because violence had already reached their town. Some left because rumors said violence was coming. Some left because their neighbors had gone. Some thought they would return when the danger passed. That is why so many carried keys. Keys to houses, keys to shops, keys to trunks and courtyards. Many refugees did not think they were abandoning home forever. They thought they were surviving for now. History turned "for now" into a lifetime. The railway became the great symbol of partition. The British had built railways to move troops, goods, officials, and raw materials across the subcontinent. In 1947, those same railways carried people away from everything they knew. Stations became places of fear and hope. Families waited under impossible heat. People climbed into carriages, onto roofs, between luggage, anywhere they could fit. Every train carried more than passengers. It carried uncertainty. Would the train arrive? Would the next station be safe? Would the family still be together by the end of the journey? The violence of partition was not one single kind of violence. Some of it came from panic, some from revenge, some from organized militias, some from local rivalries that suddenly became communal, some from people trying to seize land, property, or power in the chaos. The old authority was collapsing. The new authority had not yet fully formed. In that gap, ordinary people became terribly vulnerable. But partition was not only a story of cruelty. There were also people who hid neighbors, protected strangers, guided families across danger, and refused to let politics erase humanity. In the middle of collapse, some people chose rescue. Gandhi did not celebrate independence in Delhi. While leaders prepared speeches and ceremonies, Gandhi was in Bengal, trying to calm communal violence. This is why Gandhi belongs in the story, but not as the architect of partition. He opposed it. He had dreamed of Hindu-Muslim unity and a free India that did not need to be divided by religion. In Calcutta, after independence, he fasted to stop the violence. For Gandhi, freedom without peace was incomplete. The empire had ended, but the moral wound remained. Nehru stood at the center of a different responsibility. He had to lead India at the moment of birth. For Nehru, partition was not the dream. It was the price paid after compromise failed. His India would not be a Hindu state. It would be a secular republic, at least in its founding ideal. A country where citizenship was not supposed to depend on religion. But ideals had to meet reality. Millions of refugees needed shelter. Minorities needed protection. Government offices had to function. Food, transport, police, and public order had to be organized. At midnight, Nehru spoke of destiny. By morning, destiny had become administration. Jinnah stood at the birth of Pakistan. For his supporters, Pakistan represented safety, dignity, and political self-determination. It was the answer to a deep fear that Muslims in a united India would be permanently outnumbered and politically insecure. But Pakistan began under extreme pressure. It needed a government, a capital, a civil service, armed forces, money, supplies, and international recognition. It also had to receive huge numbers of refugees. And it had to unite two wings, West Pakistan and East Pakistan, separated by India itself. Pakistan was born as a promise. It immediately became an emergency. Even the Indian army had to be divided. The army had fought together in the Second World War. Its soldiers came from across the subcontinent. Now units, officers, equipment, and loyalties had to be separated between India and Pakistan. Some soldiers were ordered to protect refugee movements while worrying about their own families in Punjab. Men who had worn the same uniform were suddenly being sent into different national armies. The state itself was being cut apart. Not just land, not just people. Power, weapons, institutions, memory. Then came Kashmir. At partition, British India was divided, but the princely states had to choose their future. Kashmir was one of the most dangerous cases. It had a Hindu ruler, a Muslim majority population, and a strategic location between India and Pakistan. Its ruler hesitated. Then conflict broke out. Pakistan-backed tribal forces entered Kashmir. The ruler appealed to India for help. India agreed after Kashmir's accession to India. Indian troops were flown into Srinagar. The First Indo-Pakistani War began soon after independence. Partition had not settled South Asia. It had created a new unresolved frontier. By the end of 1947, the political map had changed, but the deeper change was inside families. A person born in Lahore might grow old in Delhi. A family from Delhi might rebuild life in Karachi. A Bengali family might carry memories from one side of Bengal to the other. Food, language, songs, family stories, religious practices, all moved with the refugees. Partition did not only divide territory, it moved culture. It transformed cities. It created new memories of loss. For many families, history was not something written in books. It was something kept in a suitcase, a photograph, a deed, a prayer book, or a key. This is why 1947 remains one of the most important turning points in modern Indian history. It ended British rule. It created independent India. It created Pakistan. It forced one of the largest migrations in modern history. It changed the relationship between religion and politics. It shaped India's identity as a secular democracy. It shaped Pakistan's identity as a homeland for South Asian Muslims. It left wounds in Punjab, Bengal, Delhi, Sindh, Kashmir, and beyond. The event lasted months. Its consequences have lasted generations. So why did freedom come with partition? Because the struggle for independence became entangled with a struggle over identity. Because colonial rule hardened categories and trust disappeared. Because speed was chosen over care. In 1947, India became free. Pakistan was born. The British Raj ended. But the price of that moment was carried by millions of people who crossed borders they never asked for, left homes they never stopped remembering, and built new lives in countries that were still learning how to exist. That is why partition remains so powerful. It was not only a political event, it was a human transformation, a story of leaders and maps, of trains and borders, of fear and survival, of two nations born at midnight, and of families who discovered that freedom can arrive with both hope and grief.